For generations, cultural tradition has framed human attachment as a purely romantic endeavor, a simple bond of love that connects two people. This definition fails to explain the heavy friction that defines so many relationships. If attachment is simply love, it shouldn't produce this constant cycle of craving and fearing intimacy. Emotions function as a highly intelligent framework for survival. This is your emotional operating system, or EOS. This diagram illustrates how the system actually functions. The nervous system organizes around specific, emotionally meaningful goals. It seeks out the feelings of being safe, chosen, and worthy. When we don't recognize these internal goals, we confuse connection with completion. We look for partners to fill our unfinished parts, turning relationships into tools for self-healing. This reliance on external validation fundamentally changes the nature of the relationship. Love transforms into fear of loss. Attention becomes a requirement for survival, and connection becomes a performance. Attempting to run your internal survival software on someone else's hardware creates a fragile identity. When your sense of self is hosted externally, the system inevitably crashes. To understand why this crash happens, we have to look at the mind as a mechanical system rather than a collection of random feelings. The system relies on 4 pillars. The first is attachment, the foundational drive that sets our primary emotional goals. The second pillar, perception, acts as the system's scanner. It constantly monitors the environment for cues that signal whether we are being accepted or rejected. This leads to the third pillar, identity. This is a real-time calculation of self-worth based on the feedback loop between what we need from the attachment pillar and what our perception pillar sees in the world. The fourth pillar is regulation. This is the stabilizer designed to process and diffuse the data coming from the other 3 components, keeping the system balanced. These 4 pillars are designed to create an internal circuit. When we outsource our identity or regulation to a partner, our stability becomes dependent on data we cannot control. This makes the entire psychological structure unsound. This architecture dictates how we behave when we interact with others. The EOS doesn't use a single personality. It deploys different modular selves based on how safe or threatened the scanner perceives the environment to be. In moments of perceived safety, the system boots the vulnerable self. This specific module seeks intimacy and openness. If the system senses a threat to its worth, it switches to the performing self. This module modifies our behavior to earn back attention and ensure we aren't abandoned. When rejection feels imminent, the protective self takes over. It uses defensive mechanisms and anger to guard the system's core. If the emotional data becomes overwhelming, the EOS activates the detached self. This emergency protocol completely shuts down the system to prevent a total collapse. The conflict between craving and fearing intimacy is a collision between these modules. The vulnerable self reaches for connection, while the protective self views that same connection as a threat to survival. Most relationship friction is actually a clash between these internal programs. We react to a partner's actions as if they are threats to our very existence. Understanding these mechanics allows us to shift towards system optimization. Healing is often mistaken for the goal of becoming emotionless or deleting the protective parts of our mind. Healing involves an upgrade to the regulation component of the EOS. This chart shows the goal. Regulation isn't about feeling less. It's about needing less input from others to survive the intensity of what you feel. In an optimized state, your sense of self no longer depends on being emotionally held inside someone else's mind. This requires a diagnostic shift. Instead of asking, "Why am I like this?" we ask, "What is my mind trying to protect?" Since the nervous system is only seeking those internal goals of safety and worth, the person you are with is simply the trigger for those states. You aren't attached to them. You're attached to what they activated in you.